Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something absolutely fascinating. We are mapping out the physical architecture of human memory. It's this wildly complex biological system that's literally happening inside your head every single second of the day, capturing, storing, and managing all of your life's experiences. It's just incredible.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's one of the most relatable, everyday mysteries of the human experience, right? I mean, you can perfectly recall the exact song that was playing during your first kiss from years ago, but you have absolutely zero idea where you set down your house keys like 5 minutes ago. Why does our selective memory work like this? Well, to really understand it, we have to look through the lens of neuroscience. We need to see what's actually happening at a microscopic level when a memory is formed.
So, let's start at the very beginning with stage 1, the birth of a memory, which scientists call encoding.
The stakes here are incredibly high. Your brain is constantly being bombarded by this massive influx of sensory data. I mean, everything you see, hear, smell, and touch is just flooding in all at once, and your brain has to aggressively filter all of that information in real time. Here is how that rapid-fire encoding process actually breaks down. Step 1. You experience something, and your senses send those raw signals straight up to the brain. Then, step 2, specific brain regions, namely the hippocampus and the frontal cortex, they basically act as the ultimate bouncers at the door of your mind. They analyze the incoming signals and make the absolutely critical decision of whether this new information is actually worth keeping around. And finally, step 3. If it does make the cut, the neurons in your brain connect. But here's the crazy part, they don't actually touch. They communicate across these tiny microscopic gaps called synapses, where chemical messengers, known as neurotransmitters, physically jump across the divide to pass the signal along.
Which brings us to stage 2, storage. Where do these memories actually live?
Once those signals cross the synapses, your brain essentially acts as a massive physical filing cabinet. But how does it actually hold on to those chemical signals for tomorrow, or even for next year? Well, what's really interesting about this process is the core biological mechanism behind it all, which is called long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. Basically, when two neurons are activated together repeatedly, the connection between them actually gets stronger. It's known as synaptic strengthening. By passing those chemical signals back and forth over and over, the pathway becomes really robust, and that makes it significantly easier for your brain to remember that specific piece of information later on.
Listen, if you take away just one phrase from our entire explainer today, let it be this: neurons that fire together, wire together. It's such a punchy, essential takeaway. When you repeat an action, study a fact, or relive an experience, you aren't just thinking hard. You are literally changing the physical architecture of how your neurons talk to each other. You're building thicker, faster biological cables right inside your head. How cool is that?
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where those biological cables end up. See, your brain isn't just one big storage bucket. Different types of memories are stored in completely different areas. For instance, short-term memory, like holding a phone number in your head for a few seconds, that lives mainly in the frontal cortex. Long-term conscious memories, like historical facts or your friends' names, those are stored broadly across the brain with major help from the hippocampus. But what about unconscious memories? You know, the skills you do without even thinking, like driving a car or riding a bike. Those are actually tucked away in areas like the cerebellum and the basal ganglia.
Moving on to stage 3, the act of remembering, or retrieval.
So, we've successfully encoded the data and stored it safely in the right brain regions. But how does the brain bring a file memory all the way back up to the conscious surface when you actually need it? You know, a lot of people think that retrieving a memory is just like opening a dusty file folder and pulling out a piece of paper. But it's really not. When you try to remember something, your brain actually has to reactivate the exact same pattern of neurons that were active when the memory was first formed. You are biologically reenacting that moment within your neural pathways.
And because those long-term conscious memories are stored all across different regions of your brain, retrieval is really all about finding those scattered pieces. I want you to imagine a constellation of neurons lighting up all at once, sight in one area, sound in another, emotion in a third, all of these rapid-fire neural connections just sparking back to life simultaneously across the physical geography of your brain.
So the crucial point here is that the hippocampus basically serves as your brain's ultimate puzzle master. It's the specific region responsible for grabbing all of those scattered, newly sparked pieces, the sights, the sounds, the feelings, and perfectly reconnecting them. It knits the entire pattern back together so that when the memory finally arrives in your conscious mind, it feels like one single, complete, unified experience.
Okay, which brings us to our final phase, stage 4, why we forget.
We definitely need to connect all this biology back to our everyday lives, because as amazing as human memory is, the frustrating, totally natural process of memory fade is something we all deal with. I mean, why do those keys just vanish from your mind? Well, it all comes down to a really simple cellular truth. Use it or lose it. Frequently used connections become stronger and vastly easier to recall. But conversely, if a neural pathway goes unused, the physical connection between those neurons literally withers. It gets weaker over time. The brain simply stops dedicating precious resources to a pathway that isn't being fired.
Let's move to and see how this builds into actionable biology. If we know that weak connections fade, how do we actually fight that fade? Well, the brain prioritizes storage based on a few key factors, mainly emotions, attention, and repetition. If you consciously apply real focus to something, or if an event carries a strong emotional weight, or even if you simply repeat the information over and over again, you are telling your brain to strengthen those specific synapses. You're actively forcing the neurons to fire and wire together, effectively preventing that fade.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with this somewhat mind-bending question. We've seen that everything you remember, every learned skill, every childhood moment, every single fact is physically stored by changing how your neurons talk to each other. So if memories are just biological connections maintained by repetition and emotion, how much of your actual identity, your entire sense of self, is simply a network of strengthened synapses? It's a pretty profound thought to carry with you as you go about your day forming brand new memories, isn't it? Keep exploring, keep learning, and I really hope this provided you with a clear window into the absolutely incredible architecture of your own mind.